Greetings, friends around the world. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel. Is the New World Order leaving the United States behind? What do you mean, New World Order? You talking about some kind of a conspiracy theory? Well, actually, I was reading a headline from a mainstream news media source, Bloomberg. Let me read the headline again and some of what their article is reporting. The New World Order is leaving the U.S. behind. American allies have decided Trump is simply not someone they can do business with. Then they list reasons like that he downgraded the North American Treaty Organization, or NATO. He called the Paris Climate Accords the worst deal ever. Said the Trans-Pacific Partnership was dead on arrival. That Japan and South Korea's free trade days were over. That the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, was toast, that the United States would ignore rules of the World Trade Organization, and propose cuts to foreign aid, as well as to the United Nations. She said, but a funny thing happened on the way of the United States doing this. The world started to reconstitute itself, only not with the U.S. at its center. And it says, German Chancellor Angela Merkel declared following Trump's May trip to Europe that the continent must really take our fate in our own hands. And we're seeing things like this happen, that the United States is no longer looked to be as much of a leader for the Group of 7 or the Group of 10 meetings. Bloomberg reports, jilted by the U.S., the other 11 members of the Trans-Pacific Partnership are moving ahead on their own. Asian nations are hedging their bets between the U.S. and China. Trump's tough talk on Mexico has prompted it to reach out of its hemispheric rival Brazil on defense cooperation. And Bloomberg didn't say this, but also to talk to Europeans more about trade. Further, it says in Latin America, now we've had 12 foreign ministers of nations of America get together in Peru to not recognize what's going on in Venezuela, but they basically tried to do this without the United States being involved. The article says, every hegemon has a sell-by date, or an expiration date, if you will, and the U.S. is no exception. This goes back, it says, even during the so-called halcyon days of the 1990s, President Bill Clinton's administration was focused creating an institutions and rule-based international order that it would hope would constrain China's economic strategic rise and extend the half-life of U.S. supremacy. For a variety of reasons, that didn't work out so well. So, basically saying things didn't go the way the Clinton administration wanted, and the Obama administration, well, that was in between. He didn't talk about that one specifically. But now with the Trump administration, we're seeing an emergence of a new world order. Now, it's not just Bloomberg. I went through Google News today and looked for different articles, and Google News doesn't provide news itself, it just provides summaries from different news sources. Here's a headline: which are the winning and losing nations in the New World Order? The new power bases are China, India, and technology disruptors themselves. Some of the losers are the U.S., an empire in decline, and the UK, an empire already declined and struggling to find its way post-Brexit. And it says, another article says, to form a new world order, China has initiated the most significant economic projects, including the One Belt, One Road initiative. And similarly, the Eurasian Economic Union project is one of Russia's biggest economic ideals. With the completion of these projects, the world will enter a new world order with Russia and China at the top. While Russia and China will not be at the top at the first part of the new world order after the United States goes, but they will play a role. Here's another article. The People's Republic of China is setting out to create a new world order, a new economic order less dependent on the United States, an economy centered and set on China and more than 60 nearby trading partner nations in Asia, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. A Canadian from Ontario by the name of Johnny Soul said, they're trying to change the world order because, as we know, it's now owned by the U.S. and Europe. And China has got a plan. Now, since around 1800, the world order has been dominated by the British and the Americans. In the 21st century, part of the objective of organizations and alliances like the European Union, the BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the Eurasian Economic Union, the Silk Road Project, and the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement, etc., is to essentially create a world order with the United States no longer on top. A world order no longer dominated by the United States and its Anglo-Saxon allies. Now, the European Union is upset that the United Kingdom is leaving it. It's upset with Donald Trump. It's been threatening actions against the United States for its intended sanctions against Russia. The UK, by the way, seemed to support the US on this. And the Europeans said they want to cooperate more with Russia's Eurasian Economic Union. So we're seeing a coordination of Gentile powers against the Anglo-Americans. Even Bloomberg is seeing this. Despite what a lot of people think, the Great Tribulation is initially going to be directed toward those who are basically descended from Jacob Israel. Go to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 6 and 7. I'm going to read this from the New King James Version of the Bible. Ask now and see, whether a man is ever in labor with child. So why do we see every man with his hands on his loins, like a woman in labor, and all faces turn pale? Alas, for great is that day, so that none is like it. It is the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. The time of Jacob's trouble means a time where Israeli descendants of Israel, such as Ephraim and Manasseh, the British peoples and the United States peoples, won't dominate. Gentiles will. Also in Jeremiah chapter 10, I want to read verse 25. Gentiles who do not know you, they have eaten up Jacob, devoured him, and consumed him, and they made his dwelling place desolate. So we see a prophecy that the Gentiles are going to do something. They're going to do something against Israelite-dominated peoples. Ezekiel warns about this. So does Jesus. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 7. I'm going to start reading in verse 23. Make a chain, for the land is filled with crimes of blood, and the city is full of violence. There's not a lot of violence in the United States, protests and various other things, and people getting killed in Chicago, etc. Verse 24. Therefore I will bring the worst of the Gentiles, and they will possess their houses. I will cause the pomp of the strong to cease, and their holy places shall be defiled. Destruction comes. They will seek peace, but there shall be none. Jesus also talked about this time. Go to the book of Luke in the New Testament. Luke chapter 21, start reading verse 23. But woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing babies in those days, for there will be great distress in the land and the wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and will be led captive into all nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. You don't have to go there, but in Revelation chapter 11, verse 2, it said that the Gentiles are going to tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months, or 3.5 years. This is a time of Jacob's trouble, but who's going to be this power? Is it just Russia and China? Or is there somebody else that the Bible talks about? Well, the Bible talks about a Babylonian power rising up from Europe. Let's go to the book of Revelation. Revelation chapter 17, verse 1. Then one of the 7 angels who had 7 bowls came and talked to me, saying, Come, I'll show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. There's going to be an arrangement between a risen European power and many other nations in the world. They're all going to get together, or pretty much all of them, against the United States and its British allies, British descended allies. And let's go to down to verse 5. forehead a name was written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. Verse 6, I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, and I saw her and marveled with great amazement. So we get a little bit more about this. Let's go down to verse 9. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains in which the woman sits. And we're talking about a beast that was and is not. In verse 12 says, 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings. They've received no kingdom yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they'll give their power and authority to the beast. And this is talking about a European reorganization. Now they're going to fight Jesus, and Jesus is going to win, as it says in verse 14. But let's go down to verse 18 and learn a little bit about this. The woman you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. Well, this 7-hilled or 7-mountain city, according to Roman Catholic writers, is Rome. Now, many European symbols, by the way, clearly tie Europe in with many of the things we see in the book of Revelation in terms of Babylon. For example, they have statues of the woman Europa riding a beast. They've got this in front of various European Union buildings. It's even on the back of a 2 euro coin in Greece, because I've gotten some when I've been over there. Furthermore, they have an unfinished European Parliament building in Strasbourg, France. Now, it's supposed to be unfinished, and it looks a lot like the Tower of Babel. There were also, years ago, there was a poster. There was a poster about Europe, and also showing essentially the Tower of Babylon, Tower of Babel. I'd like to talk a little bit about something regarding the end of the U.S. world order. I'd like to read a Catholic prophecy from somebody called Zachary the Armenian that was published back in 1854. It says, there's a war of prophecy that's the struggle of the strong against the strong. This is the empire of the North. The empire of the North will go against North America. North America will fall, be conquered, and brought into bondage. And then the world will fall under the dominion of the firstborn, the son of perdition, essentially. Now, why would I read that? Well, you can read in 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 3 through 12 about the son of perdition, firstborn of the son of perdition. But why quote Zachary? Well, his prediction is actually consistent with some from the Bible. Let's go to the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 8, verse 19. He said, look, I am making known to you what shall happen in the latter time of indignation. For the appointed time of the end it shall be. So this is a prophecy for the appointed time of the end, not something that happened 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. Some people don't want to believe Daniel's prophecies for the time of the end. Verse 22. In the latter time in their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, the king will arise. Having fierce features, who understands sinister schemes, his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy fearfully, and shall prosper and thrive. He shall destroy the mighty and also the holy people. Through his cunning he shall cause deceit to prosper under his rule. He shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means. So we've got a prophecy about some leader is going to rise up, eliminate people in their prosperity. Not the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, prosperous. Now, to get more toward the United States, I want to read something else this leader is going to do. Daniel chapter 11, verse 39, where this leader, who is the king of the north, according to verse 40, Daniel 11:39 says, thus he, this king of the north, shall act against the strongest fortresses of the foreign god, which he shall acknowledge and advance its glory. He shall cause them to rule over many and divide the land for gain. Well, that's consistent with Zachary's prediction that the Northern Empire is going to destroy North America. Now, the strongest fortresses right now belong to who? The United States. This is going to cease. And as far as the United Kingdom goes, Isaiah 17 verse 3 says, the fortresses will also cease from Ephraim. Now I'm not going to go into lots of detail as to why or how to prove that Ephraim and Manasseh, the adopted sons of Jacob, represent the British peoples and the American peoples at this stage. I'll provide a link over at the same place. I'll have this video if you want more information about that. But we're entering a time where the Gentiles are going to rise up. Now there are prophecies to give us information about this. Jesus mentioned the time of the Gentiles. There's prophecies in the Old Testament. I mentioned book of Revelation, chapter 11, verse 2. But the Bible also, as I mentioned before, prophesied a Babylonian power is going to rise up. Now this power will not be Russia or China, but it will work with Russia and China, and eventually, after the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand are gone, sometime after it, Russia and China will turn against the Europeans for destruction, and then they'll all get together at the Battle of Armageddon. So what are we seeing now? What we're seeing now are steps being taken around the world for different reasons to set up a new world order. While Bloomberg seemed to predominantly blame Donald Trump for this, let me state that the European Union began way before Donald Trump had any significant effect on politics. Let me say that the Eurasian Economic Union came into effect during the Obama administration. Let me say that the Silk Road project that the Chinese had came from before all this time as well. Because even prior to the administration of Donald Trump, parts of the world, essentially Europe and Asia, have been trying to figure out how to topple the United States from being the primary world power and having a world order under the United States. Since the election of Donald Trump, now they're using him more or less as a scapegoat, and in certain ways he's making it a little bit easier. When he backs out of one trade agreement, then another, so we're not going to this agreement or that agreement. And I'm not challenging whether or not, from a carnal perspective, his decisions are right or wrong. It's irrelevant for what I'm trying to convey. What I'm trying to convey is world events are lining up with properly understood biblical prophecy. And as far as what's going to happen in the United States, it will no longer be a world leader. While they don't fully understand it, Bloomberg is right. A new world order will rise up. It will be a deadly and dangerous world order, although it's after Armageddon, Jesus will return and set things right. Until then, expect tests, trials, and some severe difficulties, and eventually the elimination of the United States and its Anglo-Saxon descended allies. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel.